Before we get started onto this video, I would just like to say, Happy New Year's everybody, I hope you enjoy your day and welcome to 2025. Now onto the topic of today's video. Let's talk about the CW's Arrow. Now, I don't know about you, but every time I rewatch the show, I can't help but think, wait a minute, isn't this just Batman with a green paint job? I mean, come on. The similarities are way too obvious in this show, but hey, as weird as it was, it's unpacking why Arrow was such a strange but oddly compelling superhero show to me and honestly countless other fans that really enjoyed Arrow the entirety of the way through, separately from the other CW shows that kind of started falling off in the later seasons. And without a doubt, Arrow certainly left its mark on TV history. And let's face it, it was strange in many ways, but from its inception, it felt more like a Batman light than an authentic portrayal of Green Arrow, which was the main thing that I really wanted to talk about in a video like this, and just talking about why the CW's Arrow was honestly such a weird show. Arrow premiered October 10th, 2012, during the pivotal time of superhero media. The success of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy had created a very large hunger for grittier takes on comic book heroes. Meanwhile, Marvel was still absolutely dominating the box office with its cinematic universe, but the superhero TV shows were still really finding their footing with a good few of them. So Arrow really arrived with a very fresh attempt to merge the more grounded realism of Nolan's Batman with the episodic television storytale. It became a very big cornerstone for the CW network, really kicking off what would be later known as the Arrowverse, and its timing was absolutely crucial. Just as the audiences were looking for more serious superhero flair, Arrow really just stepped in to fill the gap that everybody really needed, and it just showed how much of a craving we were having for this, but this unique context set the stage for what really would become one of the most influential yet particular superhero shows on TV. Let's start off with the obvious. Arrow borrowed very heavily from the Batman mythos. Oliver Queen, a playboy billionaire turned vigilante, the normal thing that he actively already is, patrols the city during the night fighting rogues, galleries of criminals, and all the villains that he has, which, albeit, could very similarly be just Oliver Queen normally, but that's where we start getting to the territories of, okay, something's a little fishy here, because, from his high-tech lair to his tragic backstory to Oliver's journey, often very much mirroring Bruce Wayne's entire life. Even the show's tone with its dark, brooding atmosphere left me feeling more like Gotham than the entirety of what should have been Star City. The writers really seem to be picking up Batman stories and just swapping Bruce for Oliver. Ra's al Ghul, the League of Assassins, and even the tone of "you have failed this city" absolutely just screamed Batman vibes. At some point, you really couldn't help wonder if the CW wanted a Batman show and just really couldn't get the rights, which was obviously always the just full opinions on this, because even when they had an actual Batman show or, Batman related anything, it really wasn't ever, Batman or whatever. Or anytime we had Batman, we just couldn't get the actual costume looking good in any specific good form. We had obviously Batwoman and Gotham Knights, which I honestly didn't mind either one beginning off. Specifically Gotham Knights, I actually kind of enjoyed it if we just kind of take off the entire hero aspect and it's supposed to be related to Gotham and just kind of think of it as its own new thing. Absolutely wonderful. When you think it's Batman, what are we doing here? But besides that, if we're just talking about Oliver Queen and just talking about the character that we have specifically in the Arrow, for a hero, Oliver Queen very much has a very high body count. In season 1 alone, he straight up murdered bad guys left and right without any second thought, and the show justified it by claiming he was surviving on the island, or that, he was just kind of dealing with the ends justified the means kind of situation, but for the superhero narrative, it really just felt off. Most DC heroes have a very strong moral compass, especially Green Arrow in the comics. Oliver's journey of becoming a non-kill hero was very admirable, which honestly was one of my favorite parts of the show, but it never really quite shook off the initial season's bloodlust, and it felt and left really the fans extremely divided. Was he more of a hero or just a vigilante with a really good aim? Like, it really never gave off the feeling of, this is supposed to be the Green Arrow. This is supposed to be that playboy, nice, all cool, having the fun time that we all know Oliver to be. It really just felt more like, okay, not Arrow. We're just gonna get the character we can't get the rights for in the interesting way possible. And kind of really just continuing off into a little more of a different topic, we do have the, Felicity Dilemma, which we honestly do have to talk about because of the fact that in a couple of videos that I have made recently, there have been a couple mentions of Felicity just specifically in the comments. And when we talk about Felicity Smoke, initially, yes, she was a breath of fresh air. Her quirky tech genius with, an excellent banter with Oliver. But as the show progressed, it became one of the most, divisive characters. The illicity romance took off with the narrative and sidelining other characters and storylines. And by season 4, it felt more like a show about their relationship drama than the superhero action. Felicity also went from being extremely relatable, smart character to someone who was constantly baffling directions or, fans loved her or either couldn't stand her, and there was literally no in between. She's a character that you either love, hate, or just literally have to deal with one of those two. Like, there was so much drama between this that I literally have to make a video probably a little after this talking about why I actually enjoyed their relationships to like everyone else's like dismay, because I know not a lot of people did, but it really was just one of those things that I actually did enjoy. And even though it wasn't comic accurate, it really just kind of was one of those things that I really did enjoy. And honestly, speaking about the comic accurate relationships, this relationships that he did have were extremely, very different from what Oliver's supposed to have. Yes, we obviously had like the Black Canary and all of that, which is what's supposed to happen. But we also did have like an Al Ghul, which was one of Ra's al Ghul's daughters, which, makes less sense because, again, that's just the Batman characters, villains that he's basically getting full rights to. So, again, what are we doing here, CW? But it really just was one of those things that I honestly did enjoy and didn't enjoy at the exact same time. And really just kind of continuing off of things that I didn't enjoy and did enjoy. It's one of the main things just talking about, the flashbacks that never ended. Because the flashback structure was very intriguing at first, but after the first 5 seasons, it became almost extremely exhausting. Every episode had a tie to the past or the present, and in very, very convoluted ways. By the time that we got to season 5, it almost felt like you could hear the collective groan of the audience, whether the screen, like whenever the screen literally turned like the sepia toned or whatever. The island storyline was, extremely gripping initially, but after Oliver returned to Star City, the flashback felt really forced at times, and we really just couldn't leave Lian Yu behind because of the fact of, oh yeah, season 1, flashbacks make sense. Season 2, okay, we're talking about Slade. Flashbacks still make sense. Season 3, okay, we're getting a little too much. Season 4, Season 5, and just kind of never really ending until, we get flash forwards instead. All of the flashes just going between different times really just started becoming more of an irritating factor to me than anything else. And something that honestly became a little more irritating to me was just the fact of, overpowered sidekicks that he was really getting. Because one of the strangest aspects of the entirety of the Arrow show was how quickly Oliver's sidekicks became as skilled as him, or even more so. Characters like Roy Harper, Thea Queen, eventually even Felicity, who managed to hold her own in combat with hacking or whatever, specifically little training. Like, obviously she was never Oliver Queen, but she did get a little combat experience, barely, and she was able to be more of a very big crucial part of the team. Like, the show's insistence on giving every superhero abilities or expert level skills that somewhat made Oliver feel less special, it also became very, very along the lines of stretching believability. Like, when everyone else is a hero, it's really hard to stand out, especially when we have characters like that started coming in later on, like Mr. Terrific or Ragman, who has all of these extremely high-tech powers. The show became a little too much like well too much cluttered comparatively to like what we were expecting, because Arrow isn't usually a typical character like that's supposed to have this extreme like team that is like this extreme big giant team, and that's one of the main things that kind of felt a lot more off-putting to me when we're talking about the Arrow, because of the fact that we could remember when it was just Oliver fighting crime with Diggle and Felicity, simpler times, but by the later seasons, Team Arrow expanded into such much more that it felt like the Arrow, like the ensemble crew. Because while characters like Roy Harper, Thea Queen, or even Laurel Lance added a lot of depth or, heartfelt like storiness into this, we didn't need characters like Ragman, Wild Dog, Mr. Terrific all at once. It really diluted the show and just focused a lot more into making it harder to care about all the other storylines going on, because Arrow's not supposed to have all of this big giant team or whatever. They really just started pushing the Batman narrative a lot more, which made a lot little sense as time was going on. And really, a lot of things stopped making sense the longer that we started watching the show, because the villains were also just completely all over the place. Because, yes, while the Arrow had some fantastic villains in the storylines that they created, like Slade Wilson's Deathstroke, which remains an absolute highlight, but we have to talk about the fact that Deathstroke isn't a Arrow villain, again, is a Batman villain, but obviously also for like every Deathstroke that they had in the show, which was an amazing villain, they had Damien Dark or a Ricardo Diaz or whatever, which I honestly liked Ricardo Diaz because, he was actually like a fairly interesting character, and Damien Dark is probably my favorite CW character from the Arrowverse of all time, just due to the fact of, his character development throughout all of the shows that he was in, and just the energy that he'd always exuded. Like, specifically talking about the Arrow, the show really just struggled with maintaining a consistent tone of antagonist that some felt, menacing, while others just felt like cartoon villains dropped into a gritty drama. Like, it was really hard to take some of these stakes seriously when villains ranged from brilliant tacticians to magical cult leaders. Like, the very big difference just didn't really match the entire suit of the kind of show that we really had been getting. And it just made things feel a lot more chaotic that I didn't really understand or like. Another thing that honestly also felt very out of place was just the crossover conundrum that we had with the Arrow, because the annual CW crossovers were absolutely a blast, and I absolutely loved them, but they often really felt like they disrupted the Arrow's pacing. Suddenly, Oliver was dealing with aliens, alternate universes, or even multiverses, while like it really was fun like for him and for us to see him interact with characters like the Flash and Supergirl. It made the Arrow feel like a lot less grounded than the show really portrayed, and it made it feel a lot more inconsistent. It also highlighted how out of place Oliver was in a world with metahumans and Kryptonians, kind of the same way that Batman really does feel, but that honestly is just a normal thing between those specific two characters, being the only two human characters that we really have in the Justice League. So I could really give that a slide, but just the entirety of the pacing issue or the really big difference issue of, okay, yeah, Oliver's fighting this like normal guy like Malcolm Merlin or like Ra's al Ghul or like Damien Darth, Prometheus or whatever, and he's just going to take a break from these guys, like normal guys, into going to deal with aliens, dominators, like full-on aliens invasions, multiversal threats, full-on things going on that would shake the entirety of the Earth, and then come right back and act like, oh yeah, the hardest thing that he's fighting is like a guy that just can't die, or some kind of normal human being that is just giving him a little hard time, when he usually is a very big pivotal moment and pivotal character in dealing with the bigger threats. Because while like all of those crossovers were extremely good and like absolute fun, that really was just the main problem. Along with the fact that one of my favorite things that they did do kind of really didn't really do the show too much justice, but I honestly still loved the fact that they did it, which was just the spin-off setup, because Arrow spent a lot of its time setting up spin-offs from The Flash to Legends of Tomorrow, and while it was cool that the show launched the Arrowverse, it often felt more like Oliver's story was sacrificed to introduce a lot of characters or concepts because the backdoor pilot for the Green Arrow and the Canaries in its final seasons, while it was particularly frustrating due to the fact that, it didn't actively get up and like get to the show going, it often felt like it sidelined Oliver's legacy for a show that never literally even got picked up, which was the thing that made me a lot more mad than anything else. Well, a lot more mad specifically because of the fact that some of the shows that it really did give us were absolutely amazing, and we could have really gotten a couple shows with some of the characters that we were introduced to, but they just introduced so many characters or concepts, like I've already talked about, that it just really felt so cluttered. And what were you actually going to do with all of these characters that just existed in this universe at this point? And honestly, just talking about the entirety of the ending and Oliver's legacy, the Arrow series finale was a very big mixed bag. On the one hand, it was really a very good closure to Oliver's journey, but on the other hand, it really leaned heavily into fan service. Bringing characters back for like one last hurrah was very nice, but it also felt very rushed. Oliver's death in like Crisis overshadowed the finale, making it feel more like an afterthought. Like, did it really stick the landing? That's honestly debatable, and you guys can debate with me in the the comments. But in all fairness, just kind of like, being truthful. Like, Arrow really was a big trailblazer for the entirety of the TV show genre, but it was also very undeniably weird due to the fact of, from its Batman-like tone and inconsistent storytelling, the show was really more of a roller coaster of highs and lows, and whether you loved or hated it, Arrow really left behind an undeniable legacy. But let me know, what did you think about the show? Let me know down in the comments below, and don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you get more deep dives into your favorite shows or the most weirdest TV shows that you guys could think of or whatever. But if you guys did enjoy this, please, do all of that I just said, and peace.